How many of you have heard of dystopias before? So there's a lot of form of dystopias. In George Orwell's 1984, a dystopia is a state that watches over the people constantly, manipulates the press, and basically tells people how to think. So in Orwell's form of dystopia, it is censorship. In A Brave New World, it's the opposite. It's a world where there is so much information out there that you are now unable to discern between what is real and what is basically fake news. And how many of you have experienced a form of both the past few years? Type me in the chat box if you've experienced that. If we're going to talk about our future, we can't talk about this without thinking about what we don't want. And there are other forms of dystopias out there. One is where machines take over, where machines basically form us for energy. And it gets crazier and crazier. It's my intention to show you guys a future where rather than having us become victims of dystopia, because here's the real talk, guys. Dystopias are worlds where the ultra wealthy get to enjoy certain things and the poor just get poorer, or for lack of better terms, some animals or some people are more equal than others. So the rich get to decide what they want, what they get, where they live, how they experience life, the pets they keep, while everyone else is forced to be in the control of somebody else. This talk, I hope, will help you guys do three things. First, I hope this talk is going to help you decide the kind of future that you want, kind of job you want, the kind of economy or environment or society that you want to live in. It also is going to help you create the kind of economy that is going to help not just certain industries thrive or make you focus something beyond just the money to something that's more spiritual, more connected to source. Okay? And hopefully, as you do this, you find very specific ways in which you can contribute to the world. And I want to leverage on your strengths, what you're meant to do. I want to draw out and see where it's all going to take you. So who am I? I am Chris. For the past 7 years, I have helped businesses scale to 7 to 8 figures per year using online sales funnels. And I am an international entrepreneur. I have awards and all of that to basically cement the idea that we did good. But more than that, for the past 7 years, we have done all of that by being social entrepreneurs. These are businesses or entrepreneurs that put sustainability, impact, and giving back as a way of doing business. It is our fuel to basically create a better Philippines. Started multiple startups with different dreams, one of which is to put the Philippines on the global scale and help us earn international rates at the comforts of our home. And we also have another startup where our dream is to basically create a world where Filipino children can wake up one day with their families complete, because no longer do we need to go abroad to earn multiple 7-figure or 6-figure incomes. My goal is to basically create more businesses, more entrepreneurs that share that same idea to create a more empowered Philippines. And I'm basically going to share with you guys some of the practices and principles that we have created that basically made our business thrive. Let's begin. All right. So the first secret is going to be the try approach to sustainability. So what does this mean? So of course, with the word try, there are three things. Okay, so think of this. How many of you want to be rich? How many of you really want to be rich? So what does rich mean? If you're going to ask a normal person, rich means that you have a ton of money. So let's think about that, right? Let's look at certain companies. What if you were the founder of certain companies. Let's talk about Nestle. Okay, imagine being the founder of Nestle. Is Nestle a huge company? Does Nestle have good products? Is being part of Nestle a great thing to be? It's one of the biggest companies in the world. But Nestle also has the biggest negative externalities out there. They have an issue on water extraction that have affected multiple local communities and villages. They have basically created a sports brand called Milo that actually makes people fatter rather than more fit. And my question for you guys is, do you want to be part of that? Right? Would money from sources like that actually inspire you? Now, let's look at another company, Samsung. Samsung is one of the biggest tech companies out there, but their CO2 footprint is one of the biggest at the same time. Not only is global supply chain one of the major contributors of greenhouse gases, they are also still not managed e-waste properly. At the end of the day, Samsung is one of those companies that keep using up limited resources in the world. And while I love their products, what happens when things run out? What happens because of the irresponsible means of production creates more typhoons, like the one we're experiencing in China right now, creates more events that cannot be measured or explained because the weather patterns change. And what if, because of your company, the heat index, the overall heat index of the world increased by 1.5%? So the UNSDGs has a goal that by 2030, we have to be carbon neutral. Because if we're not, then the change in temperature is going to be irreversible. And that's going to create tons and tons of problems. A lot of the settlements we have as a civilization is because of predictable weather. Right? We chose certain places because we know, even though that they're frequent by typhoons, that we are able to rebuild in a certain number of time. Now, what if that becomes unpredictable? What if the ocean rises up? For example, in Iloilo, there was a study that Iloilo is below sea level. And for some reason, we are seeing buildings being created left and right. So what happens when the sea level rises up and just sinks? What happens to the property? What happens to the money that investors have invested there? Yeah, there's no global warming insurance. And I'm just talking about the surface level stuff. Okay? So if we just focus on the economy, producing things, making more money, we might forget that there are other factors that come into play. For example, the environment. How does your business affect the environment? Let's look at crypto. Crypto right now is $100,000. Great. For investors, for people who believe in crypto, who actually held crypto. But what about the externality that crypto has? Crypto takes a lot of energy. For the amount of value that it has, not only does it take a lot of energy, I don't see a lot of initiatives to basically offset the amount of energy that it consumes. Most of these farms or servers are in geothermal areas or located near volcanoes just so that power is cheap. But the issue still remains. Each time a crypto or Bitcoin is mined, energy is consumed. And how do we balance that out with the environment? Not to mention that crypto is just digital money. Its value is inflated. The value of crypto is something that's decided by the whales. People with money who decided that, hey, I can increase the flow of crypto. I can increase the price of crypto by pulling in more money. It's not real. And yet, the environment suffers. What about society? In the Philippines, there's something called gentrification. I live in Iloilo, and right now, I can say for a fact that Iloilo is not an Ilonggo-friendly place. Why? The prices are more or less the same as how much I spend in Manila. Imagine living in a condo, a very small condo, 30 square meters, and having to pay 7 million pesos for it. Who can afford that in Iloilo City? Yeah, maybe the rich, but mostly the people that they're selling to are not local. Let's go to other places like Boracay, Siargao. Most of the beach places or the tourist areas, Bohol, that people frequent to. People come here. I can remember a time where Filipinos can go on vacation in their own islands. But right now, imagine drinking coffee for 250 pesos and the person that's serving you coffee is earning that per day. So the value of their time is basically less than a cup of coffee, or at least less than 2 cups of coffee. And that's alarming. How many of us can afford to stay and live in the beaches that we have in the Philippines? How many of us can actually enjoy buying properties in the Philippines? When big brands come in, the local brands are pushed out. If you've played Stardew Valley, that's the whole premise of the game. That's gentrification. Jojo Mart is there to basically push the development of Stardew Valley. And it's your job to basically decide whether you support the Jojo route or you're going to do it the old-fashioned way and actually farm. Okay? How many of us would prefer to become seamen and OFWs than teachers and farmers? Our track as a society is actually falling because all of us are too busy looking at the profits that are coming in and coming out. Okay? No one wants to be a farmer in Siargao because surfing is where the ladies are at. Surfing is where the money is at. Surfing, it's an easier profession than farming. So now they have to take supplies from the outside, which makes things a lot more expensive. There's a shortage of food and power in this place. So it's very interesting. What creates dystopias? Dystopias are created by people who just focus on the money. And my question for you is, do you want to live in a future where your kids have less opportunities than you, have less sparks than you, and can enjoy the world much less than what you could have imagined? Type me in the chat box if you want to live like that. So my suggestion is simple. When you create a business, take all three influences at play. How does your business affect the economy? How does your business affect society as a whole? Okay, so that's secret number one. Make sure that your business does all three. So my company is a digital marketing agency. So people from the first world countries outsource from us, and we basically do services for them and get money in return. Because of that, economy-wise, we live in Iloilo, a place where lifestyle, in terms of lifestyle, is just a bit less expensive than Manila, but pretty livable. It's a pretty livable city, but we're earning internationally. So that means that the rates that we have is, life is just a lot more affordable. In Siargao, we have basically burned 20,000 pesos in 1 week. Imagine that kind of lifestyle. You're local, you're able to burn that much money, and you're okay. Right? Next, environment. I am not an environmental guy. To be perfectly clear, I am not an environmental guy. However, I do push for sustainability. So whenever my friends, and I have good friends who are environmental people, and what we do is we basically support them. So whenever they have initiatives that help the environment, for example, fisher folk and their wives make sustainable products, we help out with that. We create social enterprises that help with the environment. We also make sure that in terms of our own personal footprints, much less. However, of course, on my side, I am probably going to stop flying for a bit, for sure. Now, how does Prime Off contribute to society? We create jobs. We teach them how to start digital careers, and we're able to provide jobs for them. We have even started another startup powered by the company whose only goal is to basically create more digital experts just to help out with society. And the result, a pretty good life. How many of you would like that? Okay? So that's secret number one. Okay? When you do business, make sure that you affect all three. Secret number two, how do you make a business that encompasses all? And economy, society, environmental. You use design thinking. So design thinking is a school of thought wherein it teaches you how to basically find the root of the problem and actually create solutions to solve that. Now, before, design thinking was used by decision makers so that they are able to basically solve a problem. And before, the issue is not money, because the decision makers are usually the emperors or presidents, the prime ministers, the government, people who should be doing their jobs, basically. And all they have to do is focus on the solution. But what happens if you're somebody that does not have that resource, does not have that resource? One of my favorite design thinking success stories is from actually the Philippines. Unfortunately, I forgot the exact place where that was. But the story is that place is always prone to flash floods. So whenever it rains heavily, flash flood happens and basically destroys most of communities upon or bank. People have lived there for so long that they do not want to leave. And we've seen places like that. Obviously, it's dangerous, but there's a reason why people are there. Could be because of livelihood, could be because of resources, could be because it's just cheaper. It's just a cheaper place to live in altogether. And usually, what people would do when they try to solve issues like that is they would look at the initial problem first. So the initial problem is that, okay, it's flash flooding. So what is the first solution that we can do? Maybe it's making a dam. Maybe it's planting trees, but planting trees is going to take time. Making a dam is going to basically cost a lot of money and apparently lots of lives, and a lot of time. Where will people get the budget? What if we relocate people? That's also going to cost tons of resources. And we have seen this happen before. Relocating people, even people given low-cost housing, the government have always gone back to the slums or the where the informal settlement is prior. So what could be a very efficient solution that we can do? So with design thinking, you always have to set a goal. Okay, so what's the goal to solve this problem? So we have a problem that we want to solve. So what does or what outcome do we want to have? So if there's a problem, what happens? Ano ba yung nangyayari? So flash flood. If a flash flood happens, what happens is that people cannot settle or people might lose their lives. Rescue operations take too much time or might happen after the accident has already occurred or the natural disaster has already occurred. So what should we be doing? What else? So there's a flood. People get evacuated. And when people come back, do they have a place to stay? How fast do they recover after? So this particular design thinking solution was very simple. What they did was they basically created a system of how to pack. And they taught people how to basically pack really fast and run really fast to high ground. That's it. And how they can basically structure their homes in such a way that when they come back, the damage is minimized. That is an example of design thinking. One of my favorites as well is a story in India where this guy realized that his wife is always sick during that time of month. He decided to design his own sanitary napkins. And what's funny is that this guy, because he did all of that, people in his community thought he was crazy. Why would a guy wear sanitary napkins. Why would he design something as crazy as that? Turns out his design was revolutionary. Right? By testing the product himself, he was able to create a product that made it very cheap and very sustainable for his community. That is design thinking. That's secret number two. So thinking like your, stop thinking like entrepreneurs and start thinking like your leaders. And because leaders think of the whole thing, not just the money. They think about the people. They think about how sustainable it is for people to live, the environment at the same time. Okay? You do not burn your goose. So if we were to relate this to a business lesson, there's a lesson called the golden goose. There's a story. So basically, two old farmers saw a goose one day and then realized that the goose only lays one golden egg a day. But here's what happened. After months of having ownership of the goose, they have stopped being farmers and have become rich people. They live in mansions. They own multiple properties. They are able to eat whatever they want. They are able to live lavish lifestyles. However, you know what? Greed is never ending. So they've come to realize what would happen if we have more than one golden egg every day. And if you think about the economic aspects, so it's crazy. What if we can have more? So they decided to kill the goose and open it up, only to realize that the goose is not magical. There was no gold inside the goose, but the goose was just a goose. The egg was a blessing. And since they killed the goose, the golden eggs stopped coming. And bit by bit, because of their habits, because of not having the right mindset, they've lost everything that they've gained. So it's the same thing with businesses. Why kill the environment? Why kill society for money? And that's secret number two. Now, secret number three, how do you create a successful business if you do not have the resources, the capacity, or whatever? So, Chris, it's easy for you to say because you have the resources and all that. No, I did not start with resources. When we were starting, we started in my living room. When it rains outside, it rains inside. It was that crazy. So how did we come from my living room to a company of 40 people strong? It's called bootstrapping. It's basically, another term for this is creative financing, or another word is being resource. What does this mean? A lot of you, and this is funny, because in my 7 years of doing business, actually more than a decade, right, I have pitched to so many investors. I have pitched with so many startups, but most of those startups are dead. Why? Because they were focusing too much on getting investors. They were focusing too much on becoming the next unicorn, the next big thing. Where instead, what they should have focused on more is actually creating their own minimum viable product, adding value into other people's lives. So bootstrapping is a way for you to be able to create value with the limited resources that you have. So how do we do this? First things first, you need to define where you guys are going to give value to. As future entrepreneurs, there are three common industries that you can actually start in. You should help people find or create better relationships. You can help people make more money, or you can make people perform better physically in their physical health. Okay, these are the three industries that you can niche down to. Find where you want to add value into other people's lives. Does the work that you want to do help improve relationships, physical health, or money? Once you've decided that, niche down on other things. Who's the authority that people follow for your business? What tools do they use? Finally, what technique do they use? Okay. So by narrowing it down in this way, you're able to create what you call a niche. And for example, let's say physical health. I want to help working professionals get fit again. Who's the authority? What tools or techniques? Maybe the technique is through fasting. Maybe the tools is vegan food. Maybe the authority is David Wolf. Who knows? But the point here is that you write all of this down so that you have an idea of where your customers are, what they do, and how they think. By focusing on who you think they're following, you're able to basically understand and create or craft the market that you want. Once you know the market, the next thing you need to do is you need to gather your resources. Okay? So if this is you, who do you know? First things first, list down potential people. And when you say you know, these are people who could be your prospects, partners, or advisors, teachers, etc. Write down the potential people that you might know. Let's go to skills. What are you good at? You need to actually internalize, because sometimes, right? Maybe you're someone who's good in sales. Maybe you're someone who's good at writing. Maybe you're someone who's very good at graphics, or you're creative. Maybe you're an eloquent speaker. Maybe you're a networker. Maybe you're someone who can connect people. So find out what skills do you have that you think could be of value to your niche. Next is tools. So first is know, and what tools do you have? For example, tools that I know how to use. Maybe you're someone who grew up in the farm, so you know how to use farming tools. Maybe you're someone in sports. You know how to use surfboards or boards in general. If you're in the digital marketing space, or if you're in the digital space, maybe you know ClickUp, maybe you know Asana, maybe you know Go High Level, maybe you know Google, maybe you use emails. List down all the tools that you have and know how to use, both physical and digital. And then finally, at the end, think of create your product line, or create your first product. When you create a product, you need to focus on the benefit. This is where design thinking comes in, because when you find the problem, anything that has a problem always equals opportunity or value. Now, all you need to do is basically tell people what the benefit is. Find the benefit of the product that you're trying to solve. The Philippines has two major industries. There's services and there's tourism. Actually, three. Three. There's services, there's tourism, and then there's OFWs. In services, the biggest contributor is BPOs, business process outsourcing. And right now, it's one of the most vulnerable sectors out there. What business can you do in an age where AI is able to replace 80% of jobs out there? And that's it for me. See you guys next time.